We both know feminists, and we know feminism has entered into the life of almost all modern women. But those who are really dyed-in-the-wool feminists, have you seen one who's happy, Joe? They hate men, they hate children, they hate organized religion, they hate this, they hate that, and they're unhappy.
Father Charles Murr is going to be on the team. He's back, praise be to God. We're going to be talking about that fiery speech from Harrison Butker, the Kansas City champion kicker who laid fire from heaven upon the world, it seems, because they are not happy. Apparently, he's offended just about everybody. That's what I was told.
By the way, my name is Joe McLean. I host a radio program called A Catholic Take, where we look at the world through a Catholic lens. I'd love for you to hang out with us. If you like it, give it a thumbs up and let us know what you think in the comments below.
Father Charles Murr is joining us now, and we have a lot to talk about today. In the age of apostasy, which is something else I want to talk to you about, why be Catholic? And I think Harrison Butker has been saying it better than just about everybody at the USCCB or at the Vatican, it seems, these days. Father Charles Murr, good morning to you. What do you say?
Well, first of all, I say good morning to you, Joe.
Well, praise be to God.
Listen, I listened to this speech that he gave at Benedictine twice, thoroughly, completely, slowly, to digest everything he said. It's one of the most moving and beautiful speeches or talks that I've heard given. It's amazing. If the man weren't already happily married, and I underscore that, happily married and enchantedly married, I would propose him as candidate for bishop somewhere.
Amen.
He should be a Catholic priest or a bishop. This is what we need. He spoke so eloquently, so about the love of his life. I mean, this is magnificent. To hear a man talk that beautifully about marriage and about his wife, and having helped her fulfill her vocation, and she having helped him fulfill his real vocation as human beings. You know what? It's so crazy. This should be common knowledge. We should all know these things. But today, they are remarkably exceptional.
He said a lot of things, and I guess people are very upset with him for just about everything he said. He talked about,
excuse me, this is the first time, Joe, that I hear that people are criticizing him. I can't even believe he'd be criticized, but then stopping to think of it, yes, I guess he would be. The world will hate you. For what particularly?
Exactly. And I guess it was maybe 2 weeks ago or so, there was an article out from the AP about Benedictine College. They were noticing that there was all these young people on campus that were growing towards conservatism, towards traditionalism, embracing what the church has to teach, especially when it comes to the morality of sexual preferences and behaviors. And AP just couldn't wrap its head around why would young people be doing this. And they put out this story, which was kind of comical to watch. But Benedictine College is one of the bright lights in American Catholicism, for sure. It's a school that embraces, the depth and beauty of Holy Mother Church in a way that most aren't these days. So on this very same campus, it makes sense to me why Harrison Butker would give such a speech. These are the kinds of kids that want to hear this courageous, bold proclamation. But the opposite is also true. The world is the kind of kids that want to reject this bold proclamation. And I think in Harrison's speech, he really puts the, where the rubber meets the road. Like, you got to make a decision. Whom will you serve? Let the chips fall where they may. Harrison said it so well. But, I mean, this is the age of apostasy, Father. These kids are going to walk out into the big, bad world. And can they stand up to what this world is going to bring against them?
They have to. That's what we're called to do. This is exactly what we're called to do. Here's the deal. It's real simple. Remember, I began with this saying the man should either be a priest or a bishop, had he not been so wonderfully married. Well, I'm not kidding with that. And why do I say that? I say that precisely because our founder, the God-man who founded the Roman Catholic and Apostolic Church, said that we would be hated by the world. If the world hates you, remember it hated me first.
Yeah.
Therefore, one of the credentials, one of the ways to tell a Christian apart from anybody else in society is that his values be hated by the world. It doesn't surprise me at all, and I'm sure it doesn't surprise you, Joe, to know that the media has taken the opposite position as this young man. Actually, I'm surprised because what he said was so beautiful. I can't imagine anybody but somebody really mentally deranged being against what he's saying. But I guess that would be the majority of the world. Certainly the world that's ruled by the press and by modern artists and culture, yes. But it shouldn't surprise me. It did, but it shouldn't.
I've had some conversations lately, Father, some really bad conversations offline about the depth of depravity at highest levels at the hands of the Lavender Mafia, at the hands of satanic covens within the church. And it's disturbing. How do we stay Catholic in the midst of that?
Wow, is that a good question, huh? How to stay Catholic? Well, let's begin by being Catholic.
Oof.
To begin with. You're coming from a place, Joe, that I think is one step ahead. You're talking about people who have lost the faith. They have lost their way. The majority of people who are not attending Mass, who are not acting as Catholics today, were born into this confusion. They didn't lose anything. They were never given it. They did not lose. They were never given Catholicism. Therefore, schools like Benedictine, Thomas Aquinas, Christendom, Magdalene, Thomas More, etc., and there are more in the United States and throughout the world, are beginning again strongly to teach, to form a Catholic identity, to give a Catholic identity. And this is magnificent. I was just thinking today while I was shaving. We used to have a teacher. We had a great professor. We had a great professor at the Gregorian, Father Butker, a German. Actually, he ended up a cardinal. He was a great man and a good friend of mine. Anyway, he would give this theological aside. For 10 minutes, he would go on about something that was absolutely fascinating. And then he would say, has anybody heard something like this? And of course, nobody had. He said, I didn't think so. It came to me this morning when I was shaving. He was brilliant. He was brilliant. But this came to me while I was shaving today. So many people are writing me asking about what happened to the Jesuits. Well, what happened to the Jesuits is what happened to the entire Catholic Church. It's the question you're asking. They lost their way. But pride cometh before the fall. And I remember also anybody would say, I had a Catholic education, right? I was brought up, I had a good Catholic education. When they went to the Jesuits, however, you were taught differently. And people would say, I have a Jesuit education. I'm special. It's like the Kennedys with those little cards in their wallets. I'm a very special Catholic. I'm a Kennedy. Call a bishop in case of an emergency. That kind of thing. I'm special. I'm special. Well, the pride cometh before the fall, and the Jesuits were among the greatest to fall, and they really have lost their way. We've all lost an awful lot. Why? Because of the way the church is structured. And don't get me wrong, Joe, there's nothing wrong with the way the church is structured. As a matter of fact, today, Papa Bergoglio is trying to unstructure that church, and he's making a colossal mess of everything. It's going to take decades to clean up his mess.
Well, he did say he wanted to make a mess.
Well, he's living up to that.
He sure is.
That's good. He's honest on that point.
I don't know how good it is, but he certainly came clean on that campaign promise.
We've got all sorts of problems. But it really comes back to this. And I said this yesterday on an interview. I don't need many people to tell me what I should be doing as a Catholic. I know. I learned it in catechism. I learned it before I was confirmed in fourth grade. I knew that. I know what's right, what's wrong. I don't need, that's why I can be scandalized by what they're doing in Rome, because I know it's wrong. It's very, I can be scandalized, for example, when I hear a pope say, as he did last Sunday, let us pray for our mothers in heaven.
Yeah.
Well, you don't pray for your mother in heaven. I learned that in second grade.
Right.
What are you talking about? You don't.
If they're in heaven, they're praying for you. Yeah.
That's right. You know, it's a mess. It is a mess. You tell me, Joe, you tell me why the left has to resort to being dictators. Why?
Right.
Everybody has to follow the left. There is no freedom. You're only free if you're correct, and you're only correct if you're following us. Who says that? Who says that? Especially today. This is always the left. And let me just put in parentheses for our listeners. You would do well to remember that Joseph Stalin was a leftist, Mao Zedong was a leftist, Adolf Hitler was a leftist.
Yeah.
They were all socialists. They were socialists. They were leftists. They were not conservative. They were not. All right. And this leftism is what's hitting us. And you have to be with us, or we'll destroy you.
Right.
You know, this is just crazy. This is what the left too. I'm reading a couple of books actually on the Spanish colonialism of what is called Hispano-America today. And this is what the left is accusing the church of. They were forcing people into being converts. No, they weren't. Not at all. Not at all. As a matter of fact, the miracle of Our Lady of Guadalupe happened right after the Bishop of Mexico City was wrote the king to say, I'm sending back 200 priests because there's no work for them here. The Indians refuse to convert. I said that, no, we're not killing the Indians so they convert, but the left would kill you. They would kill you if they could, if you don't convert to their style of thinking. How this bothers so many people, I don't know. But we are living supposedly in a free society, and we are free to think the way we wish to think. And let me ask you this, Joe. We both know feminists, and we know feminism has entered into the life of almost all modern women to some degree. And we see some things that are positive about it too. Not all is negative. But those who are really dyed-in-the-wool feminists, have you seen one who's happy, Joe?
Yeah, that's the big trick right there, isn't it? No, they're not.
Have you run into one who's happy? I don't know. They hate men. They hate children. They hate organized religion. They hate this. They hate that. And they're unhappy. I've never met one. You know, when I meet people, I think to myself after 5-10 minutes of conversation, boy, that guy's really got it. He's got this idea correct. I'd love to be that enthusiastic. Or she understands this beauty. Or she has this gift or that. I can't tell you that with feminists. The only thing that I know is that they make some of them make fantastic lawyers because they're so angry.
Why do we fight nature? Why do we fight God's design so much, Father?
Because we are revolutionary sorts. We revolt. What is the story of Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden tell us? People revolt. My will is always better than your will, Joe. My will is always better than anybody else's will. My will is better than God's will. That's what we come to. And, when the reason God doesn't want you to eat that fruit is because then you'll be like him. Well, Give me the fruit. See, we're never happy where we are. We realize that where we are is what makes us happy. It's just simple. It's simple. Yeah. Accept your nature and let's go. The man, I'll tell you something else too. He can live a priesthood, the priesthood of his baptism, in the context of his family, right where he is. He is also a priest. And look, there's so much to be done. We need the Second Vatican Council called anything into doubt. It was our roles in the church and who we are. What we've become, however, after that, you've got the priests wanting to be part of the world, and then the world wanting to be priests. You've got half of the congregation in the sanctuary giving out communion. You've got the priests who want to become secularized. It's really nuts. It's really nuts. This I've got to tell you something. Just as an aside, I also saw there was a terrible, almost a near tragedy. Was it in Louisiana when somebody walked in, a teenager walked in with a weapon to mass?
Yeah.
Did you see the three priests hiding behind the altar?
I did. Yeah, I saw that. I saw that, yes.
Let me just put it this way, and tactfully. I'll try to be as tactful as I can and try to be as honest as I can. In the late 60s and through the 70s, we lost a tremendous, we lost tens of thousands of men who were priests who left and got married. All right? We a lot who remained were very comfortable where they were because they would never leave and get married. But not because they believed in the product.
Right. They just would stay and pretend marriage.
Have I spoken? I've spoken around it a little bit. Fulton Sheen said it well when he said, "If they would just leave, if they would just leave," but he said many of them find the priesthood a very comfortable haven.
Yeah,
and that's a problem. That's a problem. You know, I think I've told you this before, Joe. We had a nun, fourth grade, Sister Rosa Lima, who said, I raised my hand and I asked, well, she was talking about priestly vocations, right? That was the theme for the religion class that day. And I said, well, how can you tell if you have a vocation? I mean, how do you know that? And she said, and I said, well, do you hear something? What do you hear? What is this vocare, this, right? She said, well, yes, you'd hear it in a way. You'd hear it innerly. But she said, I'll tell you the best proof of it. Now listen to this. And I'm in fourth grade. She asked, how many boys here are going to be priests? Everyone except one. The one wanted to be a firefighter. Right? And the rest of it, everybody else wanted to be a priest. That was it. Yeah. And then the question, how do you know? How do you know that you have a vocation? She said, if you can imagine yourself married and the father of many children and a lover of your wife and children, then you might be able to call yourself a candidate for a priestly vocation. And my hand went up. That's when I said, wait a minute, priests can't marry. What are you talking about? She said, a man who you can imagine, or if you can imagine yourself married and a good father of a family, then you are a candidate for the priesthood. If you can't imagine that, forget it. Now, today I understand exactly what you were saying. Right? I understand exactly what you were saying. We need real men. We need men who understand women, who long for a family, because all of those things are going to be in your ministry, correctly put into your vocation, into your ministry, into your priesthood. I think that's a great problem. Look, I'm not drawing comparisons or anything else, but we ended on that note of three priests hiding behind an altar. I want to have that made into a poster and put in my room. I never want to do that. I never want to do it. You know what? When I heard the first thought, and I was watching the priest behind the altar, my first thought was me being there. If I were offering mass, I'm telling you the truth. I would immediately run down. I run into a burning building. I don't run away from it because you're looking to help people. You're looking to save. I would have run down immediately, at least to the first few pews, and gotten people pushed into the sacristy. Get out. Here's an exit. Right?
Yeah. I saw there was some confusion because
I've got to tell you too. Just a minute. I didn't see the whole thing, but if those priests did not make a genuflection, knee touching the floor at the consecration and were able to kneel down to save their own lives, it drives me crazy.
Did you like that video? It's okay. You can admit it. It's perfectly fine. Hey, we cover the big stories of our day, from inside the church to outside the church to all points in between, and we do it from a Catholic perspective. It's called A Catholic Take. It's a radio program Monday through Friday. We live stream it right here on this channel, by the way, so make sure to subscribe, like, and share. We would be very grateful to you. And don't forget, you're going to want to watch this video right here because you don't want to miss anything.